Imagine walking through a flat, two-dimensional world. A world where depth and space don't exist, where everything feels off. Before the early Renaissance, that was the reality of visual art. Paintings felt flat, figures floated awkwardly, and scenes lacked the illusion of reality. But then, in the 15th century, everything changed. A handful of brilliant minds unlocked a new secret, the science of perspective. It wasn't just a trick of the eye, it was a revolution. This discovery transformed art, reshaped how we see the world, and laid the foundations for modern visual storytelling. Let's journey back to Florence, the cradle of the Renaissance, and meet the visionaries who changed art forever, like Filippo Brunelleschi and Battista Alberti. We'll unravel how a simple idea made art feel alive, real, and immersive, and we'll see how perspective went from a groundbreaking theory to a tool in every artist's arsenal. The story begins with Filippo Brunelleschi, a Florentine architect with an insatiable curiosity for mathematics and design. Around 1420, Brunelleschi conducted a famous experiment at the Florence Baptistery. He painted a detailed scene on a wooden panel, carefully using a system of lines to create a sense of depth. To the amazement of onlookers, when they looked through a small peephole, the painted scene matched the real view of the baptistery, perfectly. This was the birth of linear perspective. Linear perspective uses a system of converging lines, known as orthogonals, that meet at a single vanishing point on the horizon. This simple yet brilliant principle mimics how our eyes perceive depth. Imagine train tracks stretching into the distance. They appear to meet at a single point. Brunelleschi translated this real-world observation into a visual technique, forever changing how artists depict space. Brunelleschi's discovery wasn't just a scientific marvel, it was a game-changer for artists. But it was Battista Alberti who helped spread the word. In his groundbreaking book on painting, 1435, Alberti laid out the rules of linear perspective in clear, practical terms. He gave artists a blueprint, a way to measure, draw, and create believable spaces. Alberti's work made perspective accessible, transforming it from a mysterious experiment into a teachable skill. Artists began experimenting with these new techniques, and their works exploded with realism. Take the Holy Trinity by Masaccio, painted in 1427. In this fresco, Masaccio creates a barrel-vaulted chapel that appears to recede into the wall. The illusion of depth is astonishing. Figures stand in a realistic space, casting shadows and occupying believable positions. This was art that felt tangible, three-dimensional, alive. Another brilliant example is the Delivery of the Keys by Pietro Perugino, painted for the Sistine Chapel in 1481. The painting shows a vast, open plaza, with buildings and figures aligned perfectly along converging lines. The vanishing point draws your eyes to the distant horizon, making you feel like you could step right into the scene. Perspective wasn't just a trick, it was a way to immerse the viewer in a new reality. But the story of perspective goes beyond grids and vanishing points. It reflects the Renaissance spirit of exploration and humanism. Artists weren't just copying the world, they were understanding it. They were applying science, math, and observation to create art that celebrated the human experience. Perspective symbolized a deeper truth, that art and science, imagination and reason could work hand in hand. Interestingly, not everyone embraced perspective immediately. Some artists clung to medieval traditions where symbolism mattered more than realism. But as the Renaissance spread, perspective became a hallmark of innovation. It was a visual language that spoke of progress, curiosity, and a new way of seeing the world. Artists like Raphael, Leonardo da Vinci, and even later masters like Caravaggio pushed perspective to new heights, using it to create breathtaking scenes that still captivate us today. This innovation wasn't confined to paintings. Architects used perspective to design buildings with harmonious proportions. Sculptors created figures that looked correct from multiple angles. Perspective influenced stage design, literature, and even early scientific diagrams. The discovery of linear perspective was more than a technical achievement. It was a doorway to a new reality. It marked a turning point where art moved from flat symbols to living, breathing worlds. Today, every video game, movie, and 3D animation owes a debt to those Renaissance pioneers. They gave us the tools to create immersive stories, to visualize dreams, and to understand the beauty of space and proportion. So, the next time you marvel at a realistic painting or lose yourself in a 3D world, remember the genius of Brunelleschi, the clarity of Alberti, and the transformative power of perspective. They didn't just change art, they changed how we see. And maybe, just maybe, they invite us to look at the world with a little more curiosity, a little more wonder, and a lot more depth.